This is my 6th annual lecture. Going back to the very first one, I talked about a concept which I later described as the social aspiration gap, excuse the jargon. And what I meant by that was the gap which exists between the kind of aspirations we have for the kind of society we want to live in and the trajectory on which current behaviour, current attitudes places us. And that gap is why it is, I think, that even though, despite the recession, austerity, we are a rich country. We are a country with many, many privileges and advantages, but yet it feels as though we've almost lost hope in our ability to solve complex problems. Problems like inequality and exclusion, like how do we have high quality but affordable public services? How do we provide dignity and care for an aging population? How do we tackle long-term unemployment up yet again today? How do we modernise our infrastructure? How do we have a sustainable economy? Big complex issues where we don't really disagree. Most of us want to solve these problems, but yet we don't seem to be able to. And I want today to look at how it is we span that social aspiration gap. And I want to argue that the bridge that we need to build to span that gap has got 3 core materials in it. And that's really the focus of my speech today. And before I tell you more, I want to do something which every single speaker in the country is doing right now, and you're going to get heartily sick of it very, very soon, I can assure you, and that is talk about the Olympics. We are going to hear everybody laying claim to the Olympic legacy over the next few weeks, but I want to explain briefly why I think the Olympics was amazing, because it was amazing. It was transformative. People who had no interest in sport were suddenly experts on slalom, canoe and dressage. And people like me, who are a little bit diffident about waving Union Jacks in the air, were buying Union Jack t-shirts and suits. So it was an amazing thing. And I think it was amazing because of this. Firstly, it was brilliantly organised. Now, we'd kind of almost forgotten that we could do something like that. You know, the stadiums were built and the transport worked and everyone thought something would go wrong and nothing did. Secondly, the whole country got behind it. It mobilised everybody. We were all enthusiastic. And I think everybody agrees that the most amazing thing was the volunteer army. That was the thing we were most proud of. And then thirdly, what is at the centrepiece of the Olympics? The heart of it. And that is amazing individuals and their efforts and their achievements. So that's why I think the Olympics were special, that combination. Because that goes to what I want to argue tonight are the 3 fundamental sources of social power. In fact, I think, but that's for a different lecture, that they are the 3 fundamental characteristics of us as a social species. And these 3 sources of social power are hierarchical authority, social solidarity, and individual aspiration. So let me explain a bit more. What do I mean by hierarchical authority? In essence, what I mean is all those people who have the right or think they have the right to tell us what to do. Politicians, chief executives, experts, strategists. That's what I mean by hierarchical authority. By social solidarity, I mean the things that we do because we're part of a group of people with whom we feel we share values and responsibilities. And by individual aspiration, I just mean our will to survive and to succeed. If you like, these are 3 voices in our heads that we hear when we've got to make a choice. I'll do what I'm told, I'll do what everyone else is doing, I'll do what I want. Now, there is a 4th way of thinking about change. These are all ways of thinking about change and also ways of pursuing change. And there's a 4th way, and which is slightly different, and that's fatalism. And that's what we do when we don't think change is possible at all, or if it is possible, it's not going to work for us. Now, to bring this alive a bit more, think of climate change and how this describes the positions people take on climate change. So the hierarchical position is what we need is a new international treaty written by scientists and experts and signed off by politicians, which is binding on everybody in the world. The solidaristic view, which is all about our responsibilities to each other, is that we need to give up eating meat and stop flying in planes and change our whole lifestyle. The individualistic view, I think well summed up by the phrase, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone, is that it will be solved through individual ingenuity, through markets, through innovation, through technology. We shouldn't worry so much about it. And the fatalistic view is it's all made up, and if it's not all made up, we're screwed. Now, as those examples suggest, actually the way you solve complex problems is to bring all of those perspectives together. Anyone who really wants to tackle climate change will want effective treaties. They will recognise we need to change our lifestyles, and they will want and hope that innovation and technology produces great solutions. But in contrast to the Olympics, the problem with society, I want to argue, is that those sources of social power have become unbalanced. So look first at hierarchy. I don't need to tell you, you'll all have seen the surveys, our trust in leaders, in political leaders, in chief executives, in leaders of all kinds is an all-time low. I think the Edelman Global Survey this year found 38% levels of the level of trust in leaders was 38%, lowest ever recorded. Now, why is it? Why is it that we have lost faith in hierarchical authority? Well, here's a few ideas. First of all, it's failed. 30 years ago, 1 million unemployed people would have been considered a scandal. Living standards rose year on year. Living standards for most people in Britain and America and other countries haven't risen now for about 20 or 30 years. So the hierarchy hasn't delivered the goods for most people. Also, in the face of growing accountability, often hierarchies have done just the wrong thing, which is to batten down the hatches. Think of the Catholic Church. Think of Fleet Street. Think today of how the police responded to Hillsborough. So disastrous choices by leaders in the face of growing public demands for accountability. But also, there's just been change in society. We are a much less deferential group of people than we used to be. We have higher and more differentiated expectations. And just when hierarchy thought things couldn't get any worse, along comes technology. And technology, which used to be something which strengthened the hierarchy, is now something which empowers the individual. You know, it used to be that you could only have a big computer if you're a big company. Now all of you have got more computing power in your pocket than IBM had 40 years ago. And so the individual can get access to information. And as companies know, when they suffer Twitter attacks, people can mobilize very, very quickly against hierarchies they don't think are doing the right thing. So hierarchy is enfeebled. What about social solidarity? Well, also we know that levels of trust in strangers now is lower than it has ever been before. And there's also been the decline of what sociologists call congregational institutions. Those are institutions which bind people together, that people spend a lot of time in, which aren't just about pursuing a single issue, but are about a shared set of values in which people negotiate and work together, things like political parties, trade unions, the organised church. So why has this happened? Well, I think social diversity, which is a great thing in many ways, has been partly implicated, and mobility, which is also a great thing. For 190,000 years we evolved to trust people like ourselves, and now we have to trust and get on with people who are very different from ourselves, who live in our street, who live next door to us. Also, we've seen the fracturing of class. Many of those solidaristic institutions were based on class, but we've seen the fracturing of the working class so that we have a more affluent, aspirational working class trying to cling on to its respectability, and then we have a disadvantaged group concentrated in social housing. Think of anyone who's old enough like me to remember that council housing used to be a tenure of choice. Now it's just a tenure for people who've got no choice and got no job, generally speaking. And we've also seen a fracturing of the middle class into those, again, tenaciously trying to hold on to the middle class status, and the super rich who fly around the world as global citizens.